again, the nature of flight is freedom, but true freedom comes from discipline and accountability.
Bar. We should stop there. We should stop there.
The North Koreans came pouring over the 38th parallel.
This is war, and we're up.
Jesse Leroy Brown, I viewed him as a trailblazer. I viewed him as a citizen in spite of given circumstances of what it was to be a quote-unquote citizen and a black man in America at the time. But he's an American, he's a father, he's a son, he's a husband, and he's the first black naval aviator. I think his approach to life probably lies in the parenthetical of the trailblazer, where, there's stories about him where, for instance, he married his wife without permission. He went to a church. He said to the church, I need to marry this woman. I gotta have her with me. Can someone house her, and keep her, so we can be together, while he was doing his training. He brought himself from the mud to the sky and became the first, which was not a thing that was possible at the time, obviously. I think his point of view on life was access. He was driven by gaining access into school, into his highest potential, into being the best father, being the best aviator, being the, he believed in his capacities more than most people and did what it took via devotion to those things to achieve that.
In terms of getting to know Tom Hudner as a man, to get the rights to this book and his life rights, I had to meet him and talk to his family and essentially get his blessing, to and convince him that I was gonna, be able to tell the story and tell it right. And one of the things that I realized that Tom was a guy who, he was such a well-intentioned guy. He was from a place where he wanted to be, he's just so good-natured and he wants to do the right thing. And one of the things that I find to be kind of interesting and compelling about people that want to do the right thing is sometimes you want to do the right thing and there is no battleground to do the right thing, right? You don't know how to be a good person when there is no fight in front of your face. And I find that one of the things that when I was trying to embody Tom Hudner is he was a man who was looking to do the right thing, and World War II had passed. His heroes, the heroes had been made, and there was no war in sight, and there was no bad guys to fight. There was no way to define yourself. And one of the things I found really compelling was that the story, the arc of the character, is that he was looking to define himself, and it came true, and just not in the way that he had hoped. It's actually, he lost everything by getting what he wanted. And what I found to be really interesting and poignant in terms of where we are today, in terms of why I think this is a very topical story, is there is a battleground to fight. It may not seem egregious, but right now, more than ever, it's very important to not fight your own fight, but to look up and make sure and be, an ally, to be a wingman, and to put your skin in the game for the people you love. I feel like that's what defines Tom, and that's where he found, I feel like, solace and companionship and a soulmate in Jesse Brown. Jesse Brown is a man who's always had a fight, and he's a guy who's been through the fire. He's come out the fire, and every day he reminds himself that he's come through the fire and there's more on the other side. And when you pair those two flames together, it becomes cosmic, it becomes fate, and it becomes eternal. And that's a relationship that's lasted generations for a reason.
I can't tell you how many times people have told me to give up, quit, die even. That's why you can't always do what you're told.
What do you want me to do?
Just be my wingman.
I will say that the planes were the least of our worries with this one. Jonathan Majors can grunt his way through just about anything. I mean, he's one of the toughest people I've ever met. In terms of the emotional pressure, I think they're way more daunting than G's. And I think that's one of the things that we approached every day, was never to skip a moment, an opportunity to do this story right. There's a million ways to do it wrong, but the truth is a narrow target and a hard target to hit. But if you hit it, it lights the world on fire. And that's what we were trying to do with this thing. And that requires a lot of attention. It requires a lot of focus. And that focus and that tenacity is something that Jonathan Majors has in spades. J.D. Dillard, our filmmaker, he's the son of the second African-American Blue Angel, a guy who is so passionate about aviation, but also watched what his dad did. And I will say that the hearts are on celluloid in this movie in a really beautiful way, and everyone just cared. We showed up to work, no days off. Everybody cared.
Yeah, no days.
You know, no days off, and it's like that's what makes this movie different. That's what makes this movie different. Is this is not just about capturing something cool on camera. The emotional weight was the daunting aspect, but also the fuel in our tank that kept us going.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same answer, so I would just piggyback. You know, the specificity of the lives of these men and the time period was extremely important. And for me, and I think ultimately for us, that was the story. That was the story. And because these men lived truthfully, you know, in that time period, and their legacy is now, you know, on display, there is a certain amount of obligation to get, you know, the life of these people out in these, you know, 2 hours and 11 minutes. And so we did, you know, go through with a fine-tooth comb. We did spend weekends and nights going through saying, okay, what else can we get out of it? We're not going to rewrite it. We're not going to add more to it. But how deep do we need to go in ourselves to get the most out of the script, to get the most out of the engine, you know? And that was challenging. And I would say that, you know, beyond what the family's aspirations and goals were, Glen Powell was so implicated, you know, and so on the line for that promise he made, that was just in the gumbo of what it was. Yeah, we have the pressure of the family, but we also have, you know, three very young men, you know, to make a film of this size, putting it all on the line. It was kind of do or die every day. Not to mention, we're making this thing at the height of the pandemic. We could have been shut down any day. There was a lot going on there, and then us two having to lead, you know, the ensemble, in addition to that, and set the right tone and let them know that this is not what you thought it was. You know, we'll show you what it is.
We bring everyone home.
Ready, set, hit it!
I'm kind of a drill sergeant myself, so I damn near memorized the Corsair manual. You know what I mean? Like, and anything that was taught to me, I was writing down and studying, and I took it, I mean, very much like Jesse Brown. No one's gonna, I mean, I'm just kind of telling my story now. No one's gonna push me harder than I am. That's got to do with my upbringing and my insecurities and my trauma, you know, so I rarely saw Mr. Dillard. You know what I mean? It was all, he's a teddy bear. It was all hugs and kisses between he and I, you know. But I knew he was there, and I wasn't gonna let him down, you know. But ultimately, I wasn't gonna let the man who brought me in this down, or the spirit of Jesse Brown down. So, you know, I try not to. I try not to take it. I take it extremely seriously, but there's pressure, but there's also like, we are aviators. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like naval aviators, they're not checking in with nobody. It's instinct, you know. And a lot of the high stakes moments, emotionally and otherwise, we're instinct. You know, I'm nowhere close to Brother Powell in an aircraft, but I do have instinct, you know, and I do listen, you know, and I go, okay, do it like that. That's exactly how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make sure every time I do it exactly like that. And nobody can save you. Nobody can save you when you're in there. You know what I mean? And between action and cut, nobody can get in there and do it for you. So advisors and friends and family, I view them all as deep support, you know, and motivation.
One of the things that I love about flying more than anything is accountability.
Yeah.
You are the pilot in command when you're up there, and it's accountability to your wingman. It's accountability to all those things. And to be across from a guy who you know, Jonathan Majors, is going to be accountable for every moment on that screen. That guy will not let you down. That is one of the greatest things you can be across from. That's a true wingman, because, again, the nature of flight is freedom, but true freedom comes from discipline and accountability.
Bar. We should stop there. We should stop there. We should stop there. Boom. I'm sitting up again. I'm back. Oh man, that was great.